Hi, this is Dave Stevens. Today I want to go over what perhaps takes the longest part during our initial meeting, and that is talking about what the monthly expenses are going forward. Last time I spoke about what the expenses are in the past for purposes of means testing, where we'd use the IRS data for a lot of what the expenses are, not actually what you spend, but what the IRS feels is normal and ordinary for a family to spend it here in New Jersey. Today I want to talk about expenses moving forward. And on my website, and you can email me as well, I have a worksheet that it's helpful if you could at least look over prior to coming in, because a lot of times that we sit down initially, people don't have a great idea of what the expenses are on a monthly basis. And if they do, they underestimate in a lot of different areas. So what I'm going to look for us to do when we sit down is to estimate with an understanding that what you may spend in the summer is different than what you pay in the winter. For instance, heating, right? Heating in the winter is, of course, much more expensive than in the summer. Of course, electricity for AC may be higher in the summer. But with an understanding that I'm looking for a year-round average on a monthly basis. So if you could at least have an idea when we initially sit down of what those are, be thinking about it prior to a meeting, that'll be helpful. And what would be even more helpful is if you could actually have a draft put together that we can sit down and we can just discuss, rather than me going through this the first time with you when we sit down. So let's begin with what perhaps is someone's largest payment, and that is your housing expense. If you're a renter, of course, that's really easy, right? It's your monthly rent. But sometimes people have mortgage payments that they're not paying, but they're going to be paying going forward. And at that point, it's maybe some time since you made a mortgage payment. So do your best to try to figure out what your normal monthly mortgage payment is. And hopefully your mortgage company's been keeping you advised of what that payment really is, even if you haven't been paying it. And does that mortgage payment include taxes and insurance? If it does, if you can know what the escrow payment is, that portion which is allocated for tax and insurance, that would be helpful. If it isn't escrowed, then have an idea what your annual tax bill is, as well as what you're paying for insurance. If you have association dues, if a condo or you live in one of these lake communities around Wayne, then you may have association fees. If you can have a general idea of what you're spending for association fees. And if you don't pay that monthly, maybe you pay a quarterly fine. Just tell me what it is quarterly, and I'll do the math and we can figure out what it is monthly. Because the schedule that we're going to attach to the bankruptcy petition, it does ask for average projected monthly expenses. All right, so then we start talking about utilities. What are you spending for electricity? What are you paying for heating? Knowing that it's going to be different at different times of the year. If you have water and sewer bills, you get an idea of what you're paying for water and sewer. Some people have garbage collection, so bring in your last statement if you could, or just have an idea of what you're actually spending for those type of utilities. Telephones and cell phones and cable and internet. Seems like we can't do without any of those things these days. If it's you have everything combined in one cable bill, one of those triple play packages, great. Just let me know how much that is. If you are paying for your children's cell phone and they're paying you back some portion of that, please let me know that they're contributing towards that bill. And if any of these expenses are being paid through a business, let me know that. A lot of self-employed people pay their cell phones to the business, even though it's a personal cell phone. Perhaps one of the most underestimated line items on this budget is going to be for groceries and housekeeping supplies. People just generally don't get a firm idea of what they're spending. Maybe you go once a week or once every couple of weeks and you spend some large amount, but then there's infrequent visits during the week. So have an idea of what you're spending. And usually people are underestimating this. I know I did. I actually went through this exercise myself and kept every receipt for about a year. So I have a pretty idea of what my expenses are, which may or may not be the same as yours. Childcare and education costs. If you have children in daycare, if you're paying for private school or private tutoring or after school activities, college tuition, those are all expenses we're going to want to document. Also be aware that those expenses may change throughout the year, right? So if you pay $1,000 a month for daycare, well, maybe that's $1,000 a month from September through May, and a little bit different during the summer. So just let me know that that's not the same amount every month. Clothing, laundry, dry cleaning. Here we're talking about buying new clothes. Buying new clothes for your children. If you have a dry cleaning bill, let me know how much that is. If you're washing your clothes at a private facility and not at home, that could be an expense that really adds up. As far as clothing, that's difficult because it may not be something you buy very often, but if you buy it once or twice a year, it's a large number. So just, if you want to tell me you buy it every September for the children, it's X amount, then of course we could average that out throughout the year. Personal care products and services. Here we're talking about haircuts, manicures, pedicures, those things that you need to take care of your personal grooming. And medical and dental expenses, we're not concerned about here, at least we're not concerned about the cost of your insurance. We're talking about copays and deductibles and prescriptions, all your out-of-pocket expenses. If you tell me your copay is $30, well, that's not necessarily telling me that you spend $30 a month. So let me know that you have a prescription every month, it's X. I go to the doctor's every quarter. We'll have to get some idea on an average basis what we're actually spending. Transportation, I'm concerned about what you're paying for gas for the cars, for tolls. If you have public transportation, let me know you have public transportation. If any of these expenses are paid from your wages, let me know that as well. A lot of times an employer will compensate the employee for what it costs for public transportation or for the use of a private car. Recreation, going to eat, a cup of coffee, bowling, pizza night. We all have these entertainment expenses, regardless of whether we're struggling to pay bills or whether we file for bankruptcy. We understand that a family needs to have some sort of entertainment, right? Going to movies, buying coffee before you go to work, buying a pizza. These are normal things that any family is going to have these expenses for. Most are going to have these expenses for. As long as it's not some outrageously large number, it's something that the trustees are going to give us some leeway on. Charitable contributions and religious donations, that's a number that can be all over the place. Oftentimes it's zero. Sometimes it's 10%. This is one of these items that I don't recall seeing a trustee really push back on. It's hard for the government to say that you can't contribute to your religious faith, and that number can be anywhere. So have an idea of what it is. If it is a large number, then prepared to be able to provide some documentation. I'm really concerned here about monetary donations, not about property. If you give clothes to the Salvation Army, or you call the vets and you donate your furniture, that's not the type of expense that would be here, because giving away property is not a budget. It's not a monetary expense that's going to be on your budget. It's going to be property that you've already purchased and giving away, so it wouldn't have an expense line here. We're going to want to know about insurances. So if you have life insurance that you're paying for, we talked earlier about whether it's whole life or term, but let me know if you have life insurance that you're paying for, not that your employer is paying for, but that you're actually paying for. Health insurance, same thing. If these are expenses that are taken right out of your paycheck, then I'm going to have your paycheck, and the paralegals will do a good job at picking those things up. So you don't need to tell me how much that is, we'll have it already. But if you're paying for health insurance, life insurance outside of your payroll deductions, let me know how much you're paying. Car insurance is one of the things that's required here in New Jersey, right? So we always have that. If you have any other kind of insurance for like jewelry or pet care, I've had people with pet insurance before. Renter's insurance, of course. Let me know how much that is. And we talk about taxes. So a lot of times the self-employed, we would hope all the time, the self-employed debtor will have a budget for estimated income taxes. So these are taxes that are not taken out of your paycheck, but taxes you set aside for other purposes. Oftentimes it's for estimated income. Other times there's money put aside for capital gains. So again, these are things that are not already talked about elsewhere. So we're not talking about property taxes here. I'm not talking about your payroll taxes. I'm talking about other kinds of taxes for, quite often it's estimated income taxes going forward. Or if you have an expense for taxes that you owe previously. That's something you really want to bring up to me, because it may be that you're paying for taxes that are dischargeable in this bankruptcy, and we're going to tell you to stop making those payments. And then we speak about installment or lease payments. So if you lease a car, if you buy a car, it's financed, you're going to have a loan. We want to know what those loan payments are. Even if you have a car payment for a car that you don't own. So it's not unusual for someone who has come to see me who has bad credit, unable to purchase their own car. They've had a family member buy the car for them. It's their car, the debtor's using it, they're paying the cost of that, so we're going to include it in the budget even though they don't own it. Alimony, child support, any domestic support obligation we want to disclose. This, if it's court ordered, if you can bring in the separation agreement or the court order stating how much it is, that's something a trustee is always going to look for. If you're paying for support of somebody else that's not court ordered, that's still an expense, and we're going to disclose it. Sometimes it may require us to document it in different ways, but we want to certainly disclose it. Even if you're paying for, say, family members overseas, you're sending cash back. Listen, it's a real expense. It may be something that a trustee is going to object to, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't at least disclose it and try to fight for what you really need to do for the health and welfare of your family going forward. If you're paying for support of anybody that's not living with you, not actually dependent, perhaps you have an older child that is temporarily unemployed and you're helping support them, let us know about that, and we'll include that as an expense. Now, that's the type of thing that may get pushed back on, but at least we can give it a shot and give it a try. So if you have any other, say, housing payments, you have investment property, you have a timeshare, we want to put down the expenses. Again, if we're talking about an investment property, we want to know what the mortgage payment is. We want to know what the property and insurance taxes, property taxes and insurance are, the maintenance for maintaining that property. We also want to know what the maintenance for maintaining your primary residence. If you have costs for snow removal or mowing the lawn or just general maintenance. Everybody, I ask this often, people think I don't spend anything, I mow the lawn myself, but everybody has some sort of expense, even if it's for, replacing the garage door once in a while, right? We all have some sort of maintenance that needs to be done in the house. At least if it's a house you want to keep, hopefully there's some sort of maintenance going forward. And lastly, if there's any other expenses that we need to talk about. So I try to put together this schedule to think about things that commonly come up, but other times just things that are unique to a particular family. Oftentimes people with children with special needs, they have private tutors that require somebody to come in and give them some special assistance or special education or physical therapy. Gym memberships, a lot of people have a gym membership. Where they go or not, that's a different question, but a lot of people have that gym membership. So if there's anything else that you can think of, and do think about it, let me know about it, and we'll talk about it, and we'll schedule it. If I think it's something that's going to face an objection from a trustee, I'll tell you that, and maybe it's something I tell you, we can't do this going forward, or maybe something I say, let's put it down here, and we'll fight that with a trustee if need be, and move forward. Okay, so again, if you can have at least a general idea before you come in and we go through this, that's helpful. If you want, I can email you the schedule, and you can try to do a draft yourself at home, or you can go to my website, it's all there. And I guess that's it. Thank you again for joining me, and hopefully this makes both your visit with me and my time more fruitful. Thanks.